Once December rolls around, winter is upon us. Many look forward to the end of the year, whether it's because of the holidays, the way the snow looks falling or on the ground, the winter sports, or maybe just the prospect of a new year. But what happens if that snow never comes?
Want to know who's probably to blame? A villain. A Christmas or winter villain, if you will.
I don't know, that's a pretty outlandish solution. Like, I could believe a villain stole your mic quality, but not winter. I would have assumed it's just some weather-related reason.
Haven't you watched any of the specials? There's always a winter villain on the loose.
That is true. Those plotlines are a lot more interesting when there's an antagonist involved. So we're gonna go over some of the best wintertime villains, whether it's in something Christmas, Hanukkah, or just snow-themed. And we also assume that they're in December because that's our theme.
And the fact that there's snow in most of them, gotta use those observation eyes.
So let's take a look at these malevolent fellows, some of which you might not be expecting. These are the top 10 wintertime villains.
Number 10 is the Joker. Now I know what you guys are thinking. He's not a Christmas villain, he's just a Batman villain. Well, yes, he is a Batman villain, but if you go back to Batman the Animated Series, he showed up quite a few times around Christmas.
Don't forget how the song goes. Jingle bells, Batman smells, Robin laid an egg, the Batmobile lost a wheel, and the Joker got away. That implies the Joker is always loose around Christmas time, or there was at least one incident around Christmas that warranted that song parody.
You want to know how the Joker got away on that episode of Batman the Animated Series?
Does it involve a wacky scheme that's intelligent on the inside that also utilizes his fatherly Christmas sweater?
No, he rides a Christmas tree, a rocket Christmas tree, out of Arkham Asylum.
Not only was he the king of Batman Christmas episodes, but his first appearance on Batman the Animated Series was in a Christmas episode, which was also the overall second episode of the series. Really, the Joker in that episode went from goofy to threatening. His traps had an obvious Christmas theme, from the silly giving Batman gifts that were obvious traps, to the more sinister attempting to blow up a train. All while the Gotham police force was tied up with candy canes in their mouths. As I said, you get both types of Jokers in this one. Still, good episode. Number 9. The Martians from Santa Claus Conquers the Martians. One day they'll be a Christmas classic villain, but for now they're a cult classic? Really, the Martians are not the villains of the movie. There's one villain Martian, I guess, but otherwise they're just misunderstood. They want Santa to bring joy to their Martian children, so they capture him with their giant robot friend. Well, he's actually just a normal-sized robot, but he's pretty giant for the time being. My favorite Martian has to be the guy with the mustache. He just looks so into his role. He's really happy to be there.
Yes, you can say he hams it up. Oh, that wasn't a pun.
So you might be wondering, what epic struggle does Santa have to go through to conquer these Martians? These same Martians I just said weren't really antagonists, but more misunderstood, except for that one villain Martian? Well, that's exactly the point. He doesn't conquer anything. There's this one Martian that dresses up like Santa, so the other Martians kind of accept that to take them in as their Santa, and they let him go. So, really, Santa conquers the Martians by default. He can just get home and say, hey, I defeated those Martians! With love and compassion. Or something. I don't know. This movie was a bit hard to follow.
Number 8 is Santa Claus and His Elves from Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale. Now this is a Finnish horror movie where essentially Santa Claus is a demon and he's trapped in some ice, and his elves get released and start running amok trying to bring Santa back to, the world.
Sounds festive?
Now Santa Claus is never fully released in this movie. Only all of his elves. But I guess that was a little twist there, so spoilers.
Doesn't everybody want to kill, like, reindeer or something like that in this movie, too?
Yep. Take that, Blitzen.
Is that your favorite one?
No. He and I have our issues.
Number 7. The Snowplow Man from the movie Snow Day. Snow Day was a Nickelodeon film released at the beginning of 2000, and was one of those movies that focused on kids and made the adults the bad guys, but it also had a twist on those type of movies. The Snowplow Man in this was considered the villain on two different levels. To the kids, if he succeeded, they would lose their snow day and the roads would be clear around the school. However, if that was just the case, I'd say he's no real villain since he was doing his job and making driving conditions easier. But they also made him a madman in this movie, so parents could also picture him as the villain. Chris Elliott plays him, and the director let him be as creepy as he wanted to be. His character loves his snowplow and will plow through anything in his path, including children.
Hope he has insurance. Oh.
Insurance? Is that a pun? Anyway, he's basically a cliche 50s villain that would normally have a twirly mustache. He also has an evil-looking bird with him at all times. This movie wasn't that great, but it sort of had a surreal, yet still down-to-earth feel to it. The movie was written for a direct-to-TV release for the Nick sitcom The Adventures of Pete and Pete, but that was scrapped, so it was made into its own movie. I could definitely see that since it has the same style as Pete and Pete, where it's not quite dark, but it's definitely not happy-go-lucky.
So by being an evil snowplow guy, he was essentially the Plow King, Barney from The Simpsons, minus the alcoholism, plus manslaughter, or attempted manslaughter of children.
Barney wasn't evil.
Well, to Homer he was, knocking down the small business. So sad.
You know what? I'm retconning this choice. Number 7 is now the Plow King. That was a really good episode. Wait, hold on. Barney's also a small business.
Why you gotta do this to me, man? Why you gotta do this to me? Number 6 is the Yeti Monster from Ski Free.
Ooh, that Yeti. Ski Free came with Microsoft computers starting in the early 90s. I remember it from the Windows 95 Entertainment package.
Yep, for those of you who aren't aware, Ski Free was basically a game where you were a guy, skiing. You had to avoid trees and logs and things like that. But eventually a Yeti would chase you down and devour you.
The first time I played it when I was a kid, that Yeti scared me away from playing the game for some period of time. I went into it thinking it was just going to be a game where you race to the bottom of a snowy hill and rack up points, but I was wrong. Very wrong. The bottom is when the Yeti catches you. You can't outrace him. You can stall for a bit when he's on screen, but he'll eat you, and he'll use a toothpick so you don't have to worry about your goggles getting stuck in his mouth. Why don't you work out your arms more, Yeti? They're as thick as that toothpick you're using.
And that is why a whole generation of children are afraid to go skiing.
Number 5. The Goblins from Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins. In this Caldecott Award-winning children's book, we follow a traveling man named Herschel who stops by a village on a cold winter night, which just so happens to be the first night of Hanukkah. However, he is surprised to hear that the village is hexed by goblins who terrorize anyone who lights the menorah. However, Herschel is up to the task to stand up to these goblins and save the village. Each night, a new, more horrifying goblin appears if the previous goblin fails. The book involves Herschel outsmarting the goblins with Hanukkah-based traditions, like challenging one of the goblins to a dreidel game, in order to ultimately save the village. Does he succeed in the end? Well, it would be unfortunate if he did not, but we are very inconsistent on if we decide to spoil stories or not, so I will not tell you how the story ends for this entry.
Aw, man! Number 4 is Robot Santa from Futurama. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. How could Santa Claus be evil? Well, if you haven't seen Futurama, basically, in the future they decided to make a Santa Claus, but they programmed him to have too high of standards for who is good and who is bad. So now he views everyone as bad and kills them all.
I really like some of the subtle nuances to Robot Santa's design, specifically the lug nut buttons, and the fact that when he goes into his slaughter mode or anger mode or whatever it's called, he gains spikes on the puffball of his hat. The first time he was on, he was voiced by John Goodman, who plays a really good villain with his really deep voice. It's kind of surprising. Or maybe not.
Santa has his base on Neptune, where he has essentially a slave army of Neptunians that make his weapons for his yearly slayings, and many a merry song is sung by them during these times.
What was all that noise in the background right there? Has Robot Santa found you?
Ho, ho, ho.
Number 3. Mr. Twitchell from Frosty Returns. He is a businessman who invents a spray called Summer Wheeze, which metaphorically cancels the winter by literally melting all the snow in an area where it is sprayed. By releasing this product, he hopes this will help him win the title of King of the Winter Carnival. He also thinks being crowned king of a local carnival means he'll gain some sort of power. Who really thinks like that? Anyway, the townfolk are sick of the snow, so they are delighted to see this invention. The mother of the main character girl actually says in the movie, and I quote, "It's the greatest invention since microwave pancakes."
She has a pretty low bar for great inventions. I'm just gonna put it out there.
You know, the product seems like a good idea, but I guess the fact that he's trying to become king somehow, and it does take away the spirit of winter, along with the prospect of a magical snowman coming to life when putting on a hat, makes him a pretty big enemy of wintertime.
Well, I think people are just so amazed by this new spray that they don't even notice the giant talking snowman not 3 feet away, even when he yells at them, because they just hurt him with their spray.
Yeah, no doubt it actually hurts him. Not only does he scream in pain when the spray hits him, but it eats right through him. Guess we know who wins in the science versus magic debate.
Well, you know what they say, you are what you eat, and Frosty ate a whole bunch of chemicals that melted his stomach.
I would have said he just ate nothing, but that works too. Another note, John Goodman voices Frosty in this special, so there's another John Goodman appearance in a wintertime classic.
Wow, might as well just call this list top 2 John Goodman holiday-themed villain characters.
Yeah, Frosty's not a villain.
Yes, he was. He was being selfish, trying to take down this poor guy's small business just because he didn't want to melt.
But melting equates to dying for him.
Selfish, selfish. Number 2 is the man who needs no introduction.
Oh, hold on, I'm not looking at the screen. Who is it?
Fine, I guess he does need an introduction. The Grinch. The one who stole Christmas that one time.
We always exaggerate what he did. He attempted to steal Christmas on a physical level, but could not on a metaphorical level. And he just targeted Whoville when doing this. He didn't care about the rest of the world. He's not that evil.
Didn't he suffer from an enlarged heart? Like, did he ever get to the doctor to fix that?
Eventually, but first he suffered from an ensmalled heart. Yeah, I know that's not a term.
That's also a problem.
You know, it was a little too easy for him to steal Christmas. You'd think someone in Whoville would have a home security system, or would hear all the noise going on in their living room.
Having a giant green man with a heart condition come in and steal your stuff is not a sign that you protect your things very well.
Didn't he also have, like, spiders somewhere where spiders shouldn't be? Like, in his,
His armpits? His foot?
Hold up, I just checked the song. The spiders were in his brain.
Wow, that's another medical condition. I think the real villain here is Whoville's lack of a doctor's office.
Number 1 may not be the most sinister villain of winter. In fact, it is something that we could put on our wintertime hero list considering how beneficial it is to, well, everyone. But in the context of this list, it sure helps crush dreams. Number 1. The sun, or heat. Anytime we have a heartfelt winter tale about a snowman that comes to life and makes a child's life joyous, the story basically ends with the snowman melting overnight and we all cry because the kid just lost a friend. And who is the culprit here? Well, the sun, melting the snowman.
And sometimes the sun decides not even to show up and help out when needed. Look at Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Would Rudolph have had to be the hero if the sun had done its job and burned away that fog? I don't think so.
Well, the sun doesn't really burn away fog, but it did make the job harder, and then gave Rudolph a job, so I guess that was good, but still!
So, shame on you, sun.
And when the sun's alive, as in sentient, that can be a problem. Maybe it will help us by adding fruit to our cereal to improve its taste, but sometimes it can be a straight-up jerk. For example, in Super Mario Bros. 3, it will just swoop down and attack you. What do we do to you, sir? Now we're aware the sun is in no way an antagonist. It brings life to all organisms on the Earth and prevents the planet from freezing over. It's also the reason we can experience warmth from a natural source. However, the heat it brings clashes with our winter-based interests.
I guess what we're just trying to say is, how many children have cried because the sun has melted away snow, preventing a snow day?
How many more must cry?
Someday we must learn about the nefarious nature of the sun and take it into consideration in our daily lives.
Sometimes it's just the heat, like in some classic Christmas specials. For example, the first Frosty special had a guy who tried to melt Frosty in order to get the hat. They all kind of get lumped in with this category, but our main body to blame is the sun, and that's our number one. So, what do you think? Agree? Disagree? We likely missed some of your favorites to include crazier options like the ski-free Yeti and the sun, so please
let us know about them.
Thank you all for watching, enjoy the end of the year, and we will see you in the next video.
Ta-ta for now.
They can't see your approving hand gestures.
Oh, well, I just want y'all to know they are very approving.